Hello, Pie Man here. So today we're talking about something rather interesting. I actually thought I made a video about it, but apparently I did not. Interestingly enough, I had a discussion with my lady about it and her friends, my friends, and then I didn't make a video about it. And I was just like, OMG, what the heck? So we're going to make a video about it right now. The simplicity of it is this. You have 100% of the population, okay? Here to here. I wish I had one of those like cool fancy things, so just track with me. You got 100% of the population, all right? Now, if you just listen to the news, you're probably thinking, OMG, there's so much evil in the world. There's so much bad in the world. This is just the worst thing ever. Oh my God, we're all gonna die. You're not. You're not, okay? I mean, yes, we're all gonna die eventually. This is what happens. So sorry to break it to you, but eventually you do die. Just the natural order of things, and probably because of your diet and other things. But anyways, I digress. But I wanted to break down this simple factoid that I feel like if you delve into it, you'll find is kind of a truism for yourself. Okay? So let's say 2 to 5% of the population is just psychotic, crazy, evil, bad news bears, whatever you want to call them. Okay? So 2 to 5%. Let's just say 5% for the sake of conversation. All right? Then you have about 20% of the population is connected to, is associated with that group. Okay? Now, what that effectively means, and maybe I already talked about this, I'm realizing this now, but I'm just going to finish the darn video, and worst case scenario, it'll be a repeat for those of you who didn't see the other one. So you have 5% of the population that are bad news bears, okay? Evil suckers. And effectively, they're like a disease. And their disease, they spread to other people. And then that 20%, they get the disease and they also spread it themselves, okay? But basically now you got 5% that's bad, like evil, 20% that are just not good at all, okay? They're cancerous to be around. They might seem like they're decent people, except for that weird time that this happened or this happened. But you'll find that around them, things aren't very good, okay? So that's 25% of the population. We're going to go over there. Now, I would argue, and it's a little harder to quantify because what do you quantify as a good person or not? But I would argue that the universe tends to work in a balance, okay? Yin and yang. So let's just say for sake of conversation, you have a similar equation on the other end of the spectrum where you have 5% of people are very, very good, very ethical, honest citizens, people who want to make the world a better place. And that can permeate and be kind of whatever you want it to be. I'm not trying to say one way or another what is good or bad. I'm just trying to say that one is definitely like you saw the actions that they did in their home and how they treat others and so on and so forth. You're like, they're definitely an evil person. On this side, you can definitely say, okay, this 5% are actually good human beings, right? And then similarly, you have 20% that are positively impacted. They work with or associated with people who are basically good, okay? So they are by proxy and in general, maybe they're not as committed to the goodness, but they are good people, right? Okay, good. So now we have good and bad. That occupies roughly 50% of the population. The question is, what are the other 50%? And my answer is that 50% is sheeple. They are sheep people. Sheeple. It doesn't mean that they're bad and it doesn't mean that they're good. It simply means that they are playing along in the game, okay? They can be inspired and activated to do great things and reversely can be inspired and activated to do really nasty things and bad things. That's when you get like mob mentality, okay? They can do great things like, hey, we're going to, we're going to go to the moon. So we're going to build this rocket to go to the moon. And this is good. Or in World War II, it's like, hey, we're going to collect all the metal and we're going to do it because we need to beat the Nazis. And these are good things. And then it can also be like, hey, we're doing BLM riots from 2020. And this is bad. No bueno. So not all these people are bad and not all of them are good. And frankly, I would argue that they're really just in the middle. They operate on the data that they are given, the data that they're looking at. They have this idea built in probably from their family that you can trust certain sources of information, and that's what they trust and that's what they listen to, and so on and so forth. And it's fundamentally not ideal, okay? So I can't really tell you what to do with that, people, because part of me actually is very optimistic in the sense of you can inspire that 50% to do something, and it's actually imperative to inspire them to do something. So if you're a good person, which I assume most of the people watching this video are, whether you're the 5 or the 20% or whatever, it is kind of your responsibility to try and inspire the other 50% of sheeple in small ways, okay? And you need to inspire them using logic and sanity and data and information. Because on the other side of that, you have emotion or trauma or fear that is being used to inspire them to do the other thing. Kind of look at it as the devil or the angel phenomena. You know, one is like tempting and it's very easy to slip into. And on the other hand, it's like, it's harder to do, but the long-term ramifications of that are a lot better. Okay. And frankly, this is really what we should be worried about, is just not only short-term implications, but the long-term implications of what these things are. And it is everyone, if you have an ounce of ability to think, and this is where I really what it is. To me, what is the single most important thing, and I'll reference a book real quick called Sword of Truth. And it was very fascinating because the main character, his name's Richard, he was lauded as one of the most interesting attributes to him was he asked questions. He asked questions. And you'll find time and time again that what makes people who are very successful, what makes them successful, it's not that they're the smartest person in the room, they have the best pedigree, they have the best college education, have the most money. No, it's none of those things. It's that they ask questions. They don't assume that they know, they ask questions. So I would challenge you to all challenge the people that you work with and associate with. If they think they know, try and inspire them to ask questions on whatever it is that they think they know. Just be like, oh, hey, so, okay, blah, blah, blah thing. Cool. What about blah? Like, what about this? What about that? Try asking them questions. Try and get them to get out of their own idea that they think they know, and get them to kind of start to question where they're getting their data from. And if you start activating that in their brain, it might take a while and it might not sit well with everyone. Some people are just stuck in their ways and this is where I get my information and that's it. And that's okay. That's okay. But realize that to the extent that you get people to ask questions and you're like, oh, hey, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or have you looked at this? Without being like confrontational and fighting them, what you're eventually doing is you're starting to put cracks into their knowledge and what they think they know. And the more you do that, the more you do it politely with manners and without getting into a fight with them about it, the more they're going to start looking at, oh, hey, I got this data from this source, but you know what's weird is the last time I got data from this source, I looked into it a little bit and I found that there was some flaws. So maybe this second thing that I got from them, maybe that has some flaws too. I don't know. And you keep doing that, and eventually what you'll find is they'll go from being a sheeple over to, oh, wait, maybe I'm in the 20%. Or we'll set up a separate group of people who are like the 10% either side that are starting to like convert over. Either way, the only way we really succeed is by doing it the right way. And I'll reference and I'll leave you with the Revolutionary War, okay? So it is rumored that, to overly simplify, if you were to take the American population during the Revolutionary War, the fight for independence, you had basically 3 separate blocks, okay? You had 30% that were dedicated British and wanted to be part of Britain. You had 30% that were like, I don't give an F. And then you had 30% that were like, no, we want our independence. Okay? 3 separate blocks. Well, interestingly also, in this block over here, in the independence block, it's widely known, and they're called the 3 percenters. 3 percenters. Remember how I said 5%? 3 percenters. 3% were actively involved in fighting against the British to gain independence. 3% of the entire, what we now know it as the American population, but at that time they were a British colony. 3% of the British colony was actively involved in fighting for independence. Now, one could argue about the nuts and bolts of that, but that's amazing that only 3% is what it took to actively fight against and win independence from one of the, if not the strongest nation of the world at that time. Now, that isn't to say that the other 27% over here didn't support, because obviously they needed support. And if you know anything about warfare, you have the fighters and then there's a huge support regiment behind the fighters. But I just want to illustrate that, again, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot for, if you have a goal and a mind and you're like, I want freedom, it doesn't take a lot of people. Okay? It doesn't take a lot of people to convince and help support you in doing this. So I just want to leave you with that today. That isn't to say, look at your neighbors and you're like, oh my gosh, 3 out of 10 of you were just bad people. Like, maybe not. I don't know. I hope you associate with good people and 3 out of 10 of them are not bad people. But just realize that not all people are bad. Really, maybe 2 to 5% of them are really people you need to look out for. And there's about 20% that are kind of like, consider them sick. And you should just be wary and pay attention to their sickness. The rest are sheeples. And then the other rest are people who are on your side and you just don't know it. You just don't know it. I went and saw a movie today and it was hilarious because the guy next to me was clearly like, we're on the same page as far as agreements on things, even though he didn't know it and I didn't know it. But I could hear how he was laughing and responding to things. And I was like, I got you. I got your number. So realize that there is more people that you know or don't know that are on the same page as you. And it is your job, your responsibility to get out there and to continue to explain and express why, hey, this is the right thing. And the most important thing is to question what you know. And I think it's a truism for your life and your happiness. Don't assume you know. Don't assume the data that you're getting is the right, best data. Don't. Question it. Question it. There's nothing wrong with questioning it. There isn't. Worst case scenarios, you find out, yeah, it was right. And, oh man, I shouldn't have asked it. And I know it's cliche to be like, there's no dumb question, but it's like, it's such a truism. Don't not question. Question things. All things. Because the worst case scenario is you find out more data. Anyways, I'm going to leave you with that. Plaidman out. I got some other things excited coming up, and thank you very much. I'm sorry if I repeated, but it felt worth repeating. Okay? Take care. Bye.